Peace and harmony with you here today. Zooming in and focusing in on really the scapegoated child who is reared and raised in a narcissistic family. I receive a number of correspondences from those who are either in covert narcissist marriages and have really a lot of origins within the foundation laid in their childhood. So I would like to zoom in on this topic because I think it'll provide some insight and information to you and some understanding of why you have attracted this circumstance or situation into your life in the present, but more so really that understanding that you have the ability to change it. And Eleanor Payson, in her book The Wizard of Oz and Other Narcissists, describes really what it's like to have a narcissistic parent. And I'm just going to read a couple paragraphs. And she describes, imagine a child who has lost a parent through death or abandonment. And the child will have significant feelings of sadness, anger, hurt, rejection, but will have little insight or awareness that these feelings are flooding in on her. If this child were to have a supportive, sympathetic parent figure who would help validate her feelings and encourage her to talk about them, she would be able to retain a healthy sense of confidence in her ability to respond to her life with all the natural responses and feelings that her psyche is experiencing. She would be able to know and express and normalize her feelings, internalizing an ability to have empathy for herself. She would have no doubt that the painful challenge of coming to terms with a difficult loss and additional challenges in childhood, however, with the opportunity to know and express her feelings, she is allowed to proceed through her child with her sense of self intact. So really it's what Miss Eleanor is describing here is, the loss of a parent in childhood. So even if one was to have an adult figure who is to be present in their life and give a valid sense of mirroring of the normal, emotional processes, that this would be sufficient to help that child get in touch with essentially their internal mechanism, their own emotional system, that they'd have a sense of how it operates, how it works. They'd be able to, maneuver, healthfully and be able to identify feelings that were of challenge and not have a sense of loss or detachment that can really occur with a narcissist parent. She further goes on to describe, on the other hand, a child who is thwarted from identifying and experiencing her feelings, either because the adults around her don't recognize this need, or because their own needs demand the child attend to them instead, will be forced to employ powerful defenses to prevent her awareness of these feelings. The child's internalized command to shut down her awareness of her own feelings is, in a sense, the necessary and unnatural path and unnatural response to the circumstances she is living with. A parent's inability to empathize with or recognize a child's feelings and individuality is an unnatural form of parenting. The child's only recourse is to protect herself from repeated injury by using an unnatural tool, a defense mechanism. So we see here that in essence, and I apologize for the pause there, I was just reflecting for a moment. So if a child is raised by a narcissistic parent who is really not present to really mirror back the emotional processes that are going on within the child, in other words, they're so sucked up into their own world, they're so absorbed by their own self-interests that they're not taking time to really reflect back to the child. This child loses that engagement within themselves, if you will. They lose the identification with their feelings, and they really have an internal knowing that their parent is not there for them. And it arises such a fear, it arises such a sort of uncomfortability that they repress this. It's so painful. It's just so almost unconscionable that the child then has no other choice to protect themselves and resort to unnatural defense mechanisms, which in essence result in codependent situations or codependent tendencies, meaning that everything is always redirected, all the awareness is always redirected outside of their world, towards pleasing the parents, towards cleaning for them, towards dressing for them, towards behaving for them, towards reacting towards them, controlling all the different various objects and authority figures in their environment, rather than coming from that internal sense of self. So really, this is the seat, this is the foundation of codependent tendencies, and why really there becomes this disruption and this knowledge that as people grow older and they mature and they enter into adulthood, they really are getting more of an exasperated sense that they have to reattend to and reconnect with themselves, that they've really had a growing awareness over time, but they have had to repress and use all these defense mechanisms in order to hide that awareness because it's so painful. So it's really interesting because then it provides really good knowledge for those who are struggling in this sort of juncture right now, to realize that this, in essence, is the foundation of how this developed and how this occurred in your life. And you then can realize that it was not your fault. It's the faulty parenting that did not reflect back to the healthy mirroring of emotions and help you identify what's going on, and help you to feel that internal trust and internal safety and internal acceptance and love by the parent. So because there's this large chasm, because there's this large gap, it's that growing divide, which does tend to grow with time and create that sort of divisiveness and that rift that one feels. And so really people end up carrying this into later in life, and then feel that there's something internally wrong with them, when in essence there is nothing wrong with them. They're perfect, whole, intact, integrity loving people with normal emotional processes that are not unhealthy at all. They've just been forced really to utilize defense mechanisms such as people pleasing and silencing of one's own identity in order to pacify and satisfy the extreme narcissistic needs of the parent. And so it's very important to identify this, realize that that is really an end result, an end impact of narcissistic parenting. So if you identify these feelings, you can now assign really the origin of it and understand it and let it go. Realizing that was really developed because of that faulty parenting, and realizing actually that now that you have more mature awareness, you can in essence reparent yourself, explain, and learn more about yourself, your own emotional processes, validate your own opinions, validate your own values, and realize that they are yours. Give yourself permission to embrace those and love those and relate to those 100%. And then furthermore, identify with people who identify and acknowledge those same values and give you the listening and awareness of those opinions as well. And you'll really begin to emerge into your true personality and let go of some of that guilt, abandonment, shame, inferiority that was carried through that ineffective parenting model. And you'll begin to embrace your internal integrity, your own identity, and shameless live in a more fulfilling and filled life. Peace and harmony with you here today. I hope these videos do help. Please share and please subscribe for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support.